As we have learned, formative assessments are an important aspect of daily learning. To clarify, a formative assessment is either a formal or informal activity conducted during the learning process that serves as feedback for both the teacher and the students to modify teaching and learning strategies. Formative assessments are used to monitor student learning and are a way to inform teachers about needs of improvement and what the next steps in learning need to be. Formative assessments also help students to identify their own strengths and weaknesses and helps them to create goals for themselves. Another form of assessing is through summative assessment, which is often confused with formative assessments. Summative assessments actually prove the student's achievement and comprehension, so instead of using the results to shape learning, the results of summative assessments are evaluated. In the textbook, there are 7 strategies for assessment learning. The first is to provide an understandable learning target. It is important that the students understand the learning destination, so to do this, share the clear learning targets and goals in a student-friendly language before they begin working on the material. Students with learning goals approach learning with a purpose and will work harder to get better. They take what they know and do what they can to achieve the goal of mastering the material. Providing a clear learning goal is one of the most important strategies because it can be a student's main motivator. The second strategy is to use examples of anonymous strong and weak work. Before the students complete an assessment, have them look at what is quality work and what isn't quality. This will help the students see a visual of what the understanding and product should look like. Third, offer descriptive feedback during the learning. Instead of just giving grades, give effective feedback that explains what the students did well, what areas need improvement. This will help the students understand where they are and where they need to be headed, which gives them time for growth and room for improvement. The fourth is teaching self-assessment, which is teaching students to give themselves their own feedback. In order to do this, they need to know what effective feedback is, and they need to know what a clear understanding of the learning target and to know how to identify strong and weak work. This will help the students become self-regulated learners. 5. Use evidence of student learning needs to determine next steps in teaching. This includes a feedback loop, which checks information on what the students have and haven't comprehended. This strategy includes approaches that help students figure out what the students need. Strategy 6 includes design-focused instruction. It focuses on specific misconceptions that are found using Strategy 5. Use building blocks in order to address one area of need at a time. Then, we give them time to practice and revise their work before reassessing, which raises their chances of succeeding. Finally, Strategy 7 is to provide students with a chance to reflect on their learning. This helps to reinforce their learning and to realize who they are as a learner. By reflecting on their own strengths and weaknesses and progress, it gives them a deeper understanding of both the content and the learning process. The assessment practices that we hold are a great contributor to shape students' goal orientations. They determine the learning culture of the classroom, which is an extremely important aspect of a student's ability to learn. If we create a culture in which the goal is always to shoot for the A, the students may miss the main purpose. Although formative assessment strategies are a great way of viewing students' growth in the learning process, there comes issues throughout the learning process that can interfere with students' motivation for reaching their learning goal. Instead of assuring the students learn the material, assessments may have the opposite effect. One way this occurs is by not giving the students a sufficient amount of time to complete a task. When an assessment has a time limit, it creates stress for those who cannot complete the task fast enough. Our job as teachers is to give every student enough time to complete a task with guidance and feedback so that they can improve as well. Another big interference with students reaching the learning goal is by grading the assessments on completion. This is seen as a big no-no because instead of actually learning the material, the student may complete a task quickly for the easy grade. It creates the idea that assignment just needs to be completed, yet not necessarily learned. Also, including the grades on practice work in the final grades can misconstrue achievement. Students practice when they are learning the material, therefore their work may not be as strong as later in the learning process. This does not prove their true level of ability. While keeping this in mind, it does not mean grades are not important. They determine what a student has achieved after a sufficient amount of practice. But in order to get to that point, we need ungraded formative assessments. It should not be a culture in which the grade is most important, but how to master the material is what is most important. So how do we change the environment in which students' learning needs are being ignored? Well, we can emphasize that the learning is the main goal, that it's okay to make mistakes, to provide helpful feedback without penalizing the students, and to use assessments in order to get to know your students and their needs. So to conclude, assessments are a crucial part of the learning process for both teachers and students. We need them in order to analyze the student's current level of understanding in order to know what the next step should be. However, we must assess the students the right way. Communicate the learning goals in a language they will understand. Give them effective, non-judgmental feedback. Provide examples, Focus your instruction on important aspects of the material and create an environment in which the students want to master material and not just want to complete the task for a grade.